Hey everybody, I want to talk about the most important out of every personality trait of successful people. The one that I think is the most important. When things go wrong, you don't go with them. And I'm going to share with you a few of my, one of my big things that went wrong. And I've had a lot of things go wrong. And how I handled it, how I learned how to handle it through a wise business coach, a gentleman named Ralph, who I worked with for many years, and every now and again I still go to him when I have a problem I can't figure out. I'm like, Ralph, help me. And Ralph used to always say to me, Maria, when things go wrong, don't go with them. Now I want you to share in the comments anything that has really gone wrong for you. And if you figured out how to deal with it, share that. Or if you're frustrated by it, share that. But I really want to hear some feedback, because the feedback that you all share with me gives me more things to talk about, and it helps me to know what you want to hear. And it also sparks more ideas for me. That's why I like these live feeds. So the difference between really successful people and not so successful people is not just how much money they make or the car they drive or the fabulous lifestyle they have, but they do have things go wrong. Everybody does. Life is full of terrible, terrible upsets. You know, you plan for something and it falls flat. You came up with this brilliant idea and it totally failed. And I have so many of those in my history. The way you deal with these upsets, these tragedies, these things that go wrong, and I'm mostly talking about business, although you can apply this to your personal life as well, is that you notice what you're focusing on. Are you focusing on what's wrong for too long? And can you switch that to start focusing on the solution? Many years ago, I had a pretty big disappointment, a pretty big upset. This was about 14 years ago when I finally said goodbye to the insurance industry for good. I had been working part-time, slowly working my way into the art business full-time, and I had quit. And about 6 months went by, and Drew and I felt like we were having great success. We were selling thousands and thousands of art prints to hundreds of retail stores in the US, and we were not doing consignment. They were buying it outright. We were also selling t-shirts and stickers, and we felt like we were doing great. We had 3 employees. We had a big warehouse. It really felt good. All this money was flowing through, and our sales numbers were terrific. But I felt like I couldn't get a handle on our finances because I was no financial genius. I'm going to admit this. I'm great at marketing and very enthusiastic, but I am not a financial genius. You give me financial documents and all of a sudden I think I'm reading another language. So I've really struggled with that. So I decided to go to the Small Business SBA, the Small Business Administration, that you can set up a free appointment with a counselor, business counselor. I went to SCORE and I set up an appointment, and I went and met with this business genius guy, and he looked at all my financial documents, and he's looking at my profit and loss statement and my, all my other business statements that he had asked for. He put them down. Now, mind you, I had quit my long-time job 6 months prior to this. So he put the papers down, he looked at me and he said, Mrs. Brophy, you and your husband are losing money hand over fist. You both need to shut your business down and go get a real job. I was devastated because I had just given up a real job. And that job was a good job, and I gave it up to be in the art business. I went home from that meeting and I cried my eyes out, and for a minute, I believed this guy that we needed to shut our business down and we needed to go get jobs. It was so upsetting. But the next day, I pulled myself back up and I said, no, I don't want to go back to the corporate world. This is what I want to do. I'm going to figure out how to solve this problem. And together, Drew and I put our heads together and we started really digging into the books and digging into where we were losing money. And what we discovered was there were parts of our business that was losing money, and it was mostly the t-shirts that we were doing. Long story short, we made drastic changes. We cut out all wholesale. We stopped selling to hundreds of stores. We decided to just do direct retail to the consumer. We let all of our employees go. We got rid of the big warehouse. We downsized into a much smaller space. And it was like starting over again, but it was a good decision. Had I listened to that person at SCORE, and I'm not saying he didn't have, he didn't try his best. Had I listened to that advice and didn't look for a solution, I'd be in the corporate world and I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be doing what I love. Over the years, I've had a lot of upsets and a lot of things go wrong, and I always remind myself to stop and take a breath and not wallow in it. I want you to take a moment and think about somebody that you know. It could be a friend, family member, somebody in the community who's always complaining about the situation they're in. And not only are they always complaining, they've been complaining about it for years. And maybe you do this, although most people listening to this aren't complainers because you're always trying to better yourself. And I know that about all of you. But there are people in your life that are always complaining. Now, I'm not saying I never complain, but I catch myself when I complain too much about the same thing over and over again. That's when I have to slap myself in the face and I say, okay, you either have to accept this thing for what it is, or you find a solution to it. And whatever that solution is, whether it's leave the situation, end the friendship, end the business relationship, change how you're doing something, make a change. And some of you might be wondering, well, gosh, when something goes wrong, how do I find a solution to it? When I can't see a solution, I don't see a possibility of a solution. Well, there's always a solution, but you will not find a solution if you're focusing on the problem. If you catch yourself focusing on the problem and complaining and ruminating over it, take notice, take a moment and say, okay, I'm ruminating over this problem. I'm focusing on it. So what I need to do is focus on finding a solution. I don't know what the solution is, but I am willing to find it. I'm going to start thinking about what this problem will look like when it's solved. So then take a moment and imagine, what will that problem look like when it's solved? Visualize it. And keep doing that until a solution presents itself. I'm going to close with that. Please leave me comments if this was helpful, because I thrive on knowing if I'm hitting on things that are helping people, because I honestly sometimes don't know until you tell me. Thank you all so much. Thank you for always being here. Ciao.